This session will focus on pay structure and how pay can be set within an organisation. As always, if you have any questions or queries relating to any of the material, please do not hesitate to email me at the address on the screen. The objectives of this session are to understand why formal pay structures are needed, to outline how to establish pay structures and scales, and to describe the role of job evaluation in pay setting. Formal pay structures are the way in which organisations plot jobs against the market value for the individuals that undertake them. The complexity of the job, and therefore the skill requirements needed to do the job, are both used to determine the market value. Using a formal pay structure will ensure that jobs are not over or under rewarded. If an organisation underpays, it will not attract or retain the best employees. And of course, over rewarding has obvious negative outcomes for the organisation. Structures have one further important function. They provide transparency and objectivity. This is important to comply with employment law, but also to ensure that employees' expectations are managed well and that employees perceive the process as fair. This, as we know from the previous section, is the only way in which employees will be motivated through rewards and compensation. To establish pay structures, 4 distinct steps must be undertaken: job definition, benchmarking, setting pay ranges, and creating a continuous process of evaluation and adaptation. The point of departure for any pay structure is to define all the jobs within an organisation. Employers need to evaluate what tasks need to be conducted and how these tasks can be organised into jobs. This will give a clear definition of job roles that can also be used in the recruitment, selection and training processes. Knowing what each job entails will allow employers to outline what skills and qualifications are required. In essence, this will outline the human capital requirements for each job. This information can then be used to examine the pool of what the pool of selection will be. Knowing where employees will be drawn from will mean that organisations can ensure that they offer an attractive reward package. It is also necessary to consider the level of responsibility, chain of command, and potential career progression for each role. This will allow for greater transparency and comparison between different jobs and their subsequent rewards. When an organisation has a clear set of job roles, it can begin to consider the levels of pay it can and should offer. To do this, initially most organisations will find a benchmark against which they can set their own pay structures. To find appropriate jobs to benchmark against, in the first instance, organisations can consider the salaries offered by their competitors. Where there are no clear comparators, often industry averages and average pay for skills required are considered. Data is usually readily available. At the national level, the Labour Force Survey and the Annual Survey of Hourly Earnings, both managed by the Office of National Statistics, can be used. CIPD annual reports and professional association reports can also provide useful data sources. Once organisations obtain the necessary benchmarking data, they can use it to set pay ranges. Ideally, pay ranges are set in the following fashion. The minimum wage for a given job should align with the market minimum. The midpoint of the range should align with the market average. And, unsurprisingly, the maximum amount of pay should align with the market maximum. Depending on how competitive an organisation wants to be in terms of their pay ranges, they may choose to match, lag, or precede the market values. Where an individual lies on the pay range will be determined through job evaluation. There are 2 ways in which job evaluation can take place: analytical and non-analytical. Non-analytical methods are mainly ranking and classification. Analytical methods are mainly factor comparison and point methods. Both analytical approaches are based on factors relating to the individual in the role and the role characteristics. Human capital factors such as qualifications, experience, and training can affect where an individual is placed in the pay range. Effort, responsibility, impact, and working conditions also play a role in positioning where an employee sits in the pay range. When choosing an analytical approach, either each factor can be compared to the average, or points can be assigned for each positive attribute. The analytical approach is the most popular because it is objective and it can be easily rolled out across a growing organisation. The non-analytical approach is far more holistic. Often deemed to be the common sense approach, ranking and classifying jobs on an individual level can provide a bespoke pay structure, which in small organisations can be very effective. However, as organisations grow, this approach becomes less feasible. Another consideration is the difficulty in ensuring objectivity and transparency when setting pay in this way. Whatever the approach is, it is important to remember that pay structures need to be continually evaluated and adapted to make different factors, such as inflation, changes in supply, changes in demand, and market trends, to name but a few. One of the fundamental organisation-managed influences is annual appraisals and performance management, both of which can be used to move employees up the pay scale and to change the boundaries where necessary.